All right, what's going on, everyone? Showdown breakdown time. Eagles at the Seahawks, Monday Night Football. With me to break it down, as always, Bobbywow.
Wow.
And I just want to say a couple things. First of all, good luck to everybody. A lot of people fighting for that round 2 of their fantasy playoffs tonight, Bobby. And a lot of people got Jalen Hurts and a lot of, do we know what's going on with that illness for Jalen Hurts at this point? Because a lot of people are probably relying on him to try to get through to round 2.
Yeah, I think, last I heard, Jalen Hurts looks like he's going to try and play. So I have not received an official ruling from what I can see yet. But Jalen Hurts, it looks like he's going to play. On the other side of the ball, it's a little more doubtful, though. I think, Geno Smith, it looks like he won't play. So it'd be interesting to see what happens tonight. But I think Hurts will play, Geno won't play.
So I think, going on the assumption Hurts is in, Geno's out. I think a good way to break this one down will just be kind of see what happened last week, especially with the Seahawks, with Drew Lock in the game. And we could, kind of take a look at what some of the prediction metrics have for the slate overall in terms of, in terms of yardage and defenses and all of that, and jump right into it. So I think let's jump right into this thing and take a look at these matchups, Bobby. Wow. So hang on, let me bring up the matchups here. We'll get that on screen. And let's take a look at this one. I'm excited. This will be, I don't know. Actually, I don't know if it'll be a fun one or another boring, primetime game. We'll have to see. What we do know is Drew Lock did start for Seattle last week.
He did.
Let's see if there's any differs here. So Kenny Walker didn't play. Did he play last week?
He played. I think he played a little bit.
That's right. It was just a tough matchup for Walker. Interesting. But last week it was a pretty even split between Walker and Charbonnet in terms of like overall snap counts.
Yeah, I think in general we expect that Kenneth Walker's snap count will continue to rise. He's been dealing with that injury, and I think he's back close to full health, so we should see him get the more snaps tonight.
Yeah, not a great matchup. Eagles rush defense is pretty good, but still, it's a 1-game sample, so it doesn't really matter. Taking a look at the wide receiver distribution, I do think it's noteworthy that, it's pretty close to the season. All three of these wide receivers get a similar about 20% of the targets.
I think even more interestingly is, JSN jumps out a little bit as the guy who got more targets than Metcalf or Lockett with Drew Lock under center last week.
Yeah, but it's been kind of like that. If you kind of look the whole season, it hasn't been that crazy different. Like they're all getting targets at this point late in the season about the same, 6 or 7 targets. I'd say like a range of 5 to 7 targets for all three of those guys in this game sounds about right. Yep. So obviously the cheaper one might be better. Let's take a look here. So Noah Fant last week got some looks as well from Drew Lock for whatever that's worth. So that's your Seattle side. It looks like Fant will be the prime tight end in terms of catching passes. Parkinson and Disley get worked in a little bit as well. Yep. I think a lot of people like Parkinson in that $200 price tag.
I don't know. Popular feels strong, but yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, popular or semi-popular punt. All right, taking a look at the Eagles side. There's not that many names on the list here because the Eagles don't really spread it around all that much. It's pretty much an offense centered around Hurts or DeAndre Swift running the football. Mix in Gainwell a little bit here. Looks like he got 17% of the carries. A lot of touches, but not a ton of carries in general for Gainwell, and that's how it's been. Swift is getting the lion's share of the carries, the running back carries. It's amazing. A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith are both getting, I would say, WR1 treatment in terms of targets, along with Goddard. And the way they're able to do it is they really don't throw to anybody else.
Yeah.
So take a look at these numbers. On the season, Brown 32%, Smith 24% targets, with Quez Watkins and Alameda mixing in for 1 and 2 and 3% type numbers, like nothing. They get nothing. Dallas Goedert's back now, so I expect those numbers to level a little bit between the three of them. But last week it was, they didn't throw a target to anybody but Brown, Smith, or Goddard. Obviously it was, a a different situation last week, but I think more of the same here, Bobbywow. Do we need to worry about? I mean, I'm still going to, get some Quez exposure or some turd, but what level of turdliness is anybody not in the top 3 or 4 playmakers for the Eagles?
I think I'm with you. I think Kez is the guy that I'm going to be overweight on the Eagles side. He seems to be getting healthier, seems to be getting integrated more into the offense, at least in terms of snaps played. But you're right. It's very concentrated. The thing we'll have to figure out tonight is, what do you think Hurts looks like? I'm assuming he plays. And do you think, that does something to a guy like DeAndre Swift's usage or Kenneth Gainwell's usage? That's the balance game we'll have to try and figure out. But yeah, in terms of turds, I think, Kez Watkins is probably the lowest I'm going tonight.
Yeah. Let me pull something up here. So you mentioned, rushing yards, passing yards. Let's get a little DVP action going here and just understand what to expect. So, in general here on the power ranking sheet where we predict yardage and all that good stuff, you can see that Seattle not expected to run for a lot of yards. Eagles defense really good against the run. They do allow pass catchers. I think Darius Slay is out for this game, Bobbywow. He might be done for the season. I'm not sure, but I did see something that he is not playing. So, there's not really anything too scary going on in the secondary for the Eagles, and they've been burned all year. Actually, Darius Slay's been getting burned all year anyway. Has not been great.
It's been rough. It has not been as good as you would envision these passing defense being.
Yeah. The flip side is they stopped the run. Seattle only projected to run for 75 yards. Now, on the other hand, Philadelphia's Seattle's been terrible defensively. They're very bad versus the run, and they're allowing lots of yards. Let's take a look at the individual stat here real quick, and then we'll jump on to the cheat sheets and really getting into this breakdown. But Seattle here allowing 23 passing yards above expectation to opposing defenses, and slightly just average against the run. That's what this is showing, equal. So you should get what you expect against the run. Eagles, on the other hand, and I'm sure this will show, they've been stopping the run and are much better versus the pass. Yeah, there it is. They allow 17 fewer rushing yards per game and 20 additional passing yards per game to opposing teams. So all of this makes sense. I would say the baseline way to look at this slate, Bobbywow, is to say on the Seattle side, we want to look at the pass catchers. On the Eagles side, anything goes. Running back, certainly in play. All the pass catchers, hard to know which one is going to, it's never easy to know which one, but you just kind of want to mix them in. And Jalen Hurts is always a good play. Jalen Hurts' best game will happen if Seattle is having a good game.
Yep.
Like the scenario where Jalen Hurts fails, I think, is if Seattle just sucks.
Or if this illness hampers him in the game plan. I think that's the other thing we have to play for, or at least keep in mind tonight.
Yeah. I'm not going to overly concern myself with an illness. My feeling is if he plays, he plays. And he's fine.
I think that's how I'm playing it too, but it's just that we got to keep in the back of our minds.
Yeah. If he plays, he plays. That's all you got to do. Because we don't know what his illness is. Does he have a cold? Does he have the COVID?
What I'm seeing the NFL guys report is this is worse. This is not just a cold. It's not just a flu. It's worse.
It's something worse.
And it's something that's gotten worse from Saturday to Sunday.
Maybe he's terrible. Maybe he's got a fever, and maybe he really won't play. Like, listen, that's very rare, extremely rare. As a matter of fact, I cannot remember a time, outside of the COVID era, where a player got sick, like with the flu, and didn't play. I don't remember that.
This feels different.
Does it? All right. Let's see what happens tonight. Should we make a provision? This game completely changes if Hurts. Yeah, I think he plays. The difference of this game with Mariota is just insanely different.
Yeah, I really do think Hurts plays. And so, again, like you mentioned, if he plays, I'm playing it as if he's going to do what Jalen Hurts does. The guy's competitive. It could be a Michael Jordan flu game, for all we know. But there's no doubt that Jalen Hurts is sick, and it's more than just a cold.
Yeah, take a fucking drink some cough syrup and let's go.
But I tend to side with you. I think he is going to play. And if he does play, we're going to get Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to say. I am not going to sit here You will not make money in DFS trying to predict injuries, weather, unless the weather's crazy. Like, these are things you have to just say the crowd will let the crowd overreact and make a mistake. Yeah, there's not none of that illness isn't something a blue moon won't get you feeling better for a few hours afterwards. Then you feel worse after that, but for a few hours for the game, a blue moon down, you'll be good. All right, let's run through this captain pool and see what we could figure out. I'm actually gonna go to Dom Station first before I show the sheet, because I like to look at ownerships and I like sorting them by highest to lowest, right? That makes me happy. So on screen, you can see here, it looks like in order of highest owned: Hurts, Brown, Metcalf, Devontae Smith, DeAndre Swift, Lockett, Walker, Njigba, and Goddard. And then it just gets to the turd zone. Pretty obvious, I would say.
Expected.
Yeah. So just expected ownerships at captain. Let's take a look at the sheet. So Bobbywow, take me through the captain pool and just give me your spin on these guys. Jalen Hurts is the top dog, I would say.
Yeah, I think DFS up north did this sheet, and I'm in pretty much full agreement with him. Jalen Hurts still the top dog. A little surprised we're not seeing a little bit lower ownership with people nervous about the sickness, but I think that's where I would expect him to be, and I think he's absolutely got the top ceiling on this slate. I think AJ Brown, him and Devonta Smith are second and third for me, and DFS up north has that on a sheet as well in terms of rating. AJ Brown has been a volume machine. He is the number one guy. We've seen Devonta Smith at times pull ahead and be that ceiling guy, but I think both of them are in play, especially if Jalen Hurts is going to start. DK Metcalf, I'm a little lower on. So I love that. Again, I love that DFS at north has Lockett as a 4-star, Metcalf as a 3-star. Totally agree with that. I think Lockett is a guy that probably fits the Drew Lock passing a little bit better. DK Metcalf, I think, benefits a little more with Geno Smith. So to me, Lockett is probably the fourth best, and then from there, I think it's a mixture of the other guys. But I fully agree with the way DFS up north has this mapped out.
Yeah, I'm fine with that at the wide receiver position as well. The one that's standing out to me is DeAndre Swift. I do think he has some upside here in a scenario where, in a less competitive game scenario, or where they throw to him a little bit, which you can't definitely count on. But yeah, I would say DeAndre Swift is that, hey, maybe I could get a little weird, a little different here, and still do okay.
Yeah. So if you think, and I know you don't, but just saying as a hypothetical, you think Jalen Hurts would be limited in any way by the sickness? Let's say he plays, but he's not the same Hurts. Do you think Swift is the guy that would kind of be the beneficiary in terms of fantasy purposes?
By far the biggest.
Okay.
If you believe that Hurts is like messed up, or if we find out that Hurts isn't playing, he's got the vid, he's got the cocos or something like that, and it's got to go to somebody else, and it's gonna be fucking Mariota out there who cannot release the football for a pass. He's too scared of throwing the ball. Yes.
Well, there you go.
That's the Swift game.
Important intel right there.
Yes, but I don't think that's happening. I think it will be Jalen Hurts. But again, if it's not Jalen Hurts, DeAndre Swift is my number one. Now, one other thing that I think people aren't thinking about for this game is, now you gotta always be ready for this scenario. In the case of this game, it's what if Drew Lock absolutely stinks? So everybody saw Drew Lock. Let's just think about what the crowd thinks. All the crowd knows is exactly what we saw last week out of Drew Lock, right? Everybody thinks, okay, Drew Lock, pretty good. Why? I saw him last week and he didn't look that bad against the 49ers, the amazing 49ers defense. So the whole crowd, that's what the crowd is thinking. What I like to look at is, all right, if everybody's thinking that, what other angle is there? And the other angle is Drew Lock stinks. Drew Lock was terrible in Denver. He was absolute dog shit. And there's a reason he's a backup. There's a reason he's a backup to Geno. And it's because he's not that good. He's not. He is absolutely not that good. Now, again, Nick Mullins played well the other day. And that's what we learned when watching this. Like, anybody could play well for a game or two. But eventually, the real comes out. And if you ain't that good, it's going to show. Eagles defense pretty good overall, although they have not been like any shutdown. But I think there is a scenario where Drew Lock just looks terrible. And in that case, you get your Eagles onslaughts and maybe some Eagles defense going. And like, I'm not afraid of Eagles defense is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I'm not afraid of Eagles defense either. And I think your sentiment of Drew Lock probably not being good is true. What I might argue is that the public thinks that Drew Lock is good because they look at last week. I think the vast majority of people playing tonight think Drew Lock stinks and could never put up a respectable stat line. That's what I think people feel.
Going the opposite way.
From what I've been seeing. So to me, I think if you're looking to like take that, this is a one single game approach. I think you could get overweight on a guy like Drew Lock, who, if Jalen Hurts is playing, is going to have to throw the football like he did last week. And, maybe, 2 touchdowns, 300 yards, a guy could run a little bit. Maybe that could get you there on a slate like this. So that's my perspective. If it's different, if we're seeing ownership reflect differently, then completely agree with you. He has not been good. But a slate like this, if the public is off Drew Lock, I don't see why not. He's relatively cheaper. He's going to be lower owned. He might be worth some shots, especially on FanDuel.
All right. Wait a minute here.
Yeah, so like there, it looks like his ownership is really low.
I don't buy this for a second. This is still.
I think the public hates Drew Lock. I think most people would say he totally stinks. He's a turd. But
there's no way 15 or 20% is an accurate number for Drew Lock's ownership.
If it is, let's say it is. Yeah. It's not, but let's just say it is. Does your opinion change on Drew Lock playing?
Yes,
Drew Lock?
Of course. I think ownership is the key to that whole play in general. I don't agree with this number because as of this second, Geno Smith has not actually been ruled out. So what ends up happening with ownerships is it gets weird because the player's not ruled out yet. So just understand that that's what's going on. There's no way you're going to see 2% captain or 13% flex. Even the worst quarterback will be 30% in the flex or 33. So if you're going over or under, that number is more in the 30s, not in the you're not basing it around 15%. Just to be clear, this is definitely because I could be wrong, but I'm thinking it's because Geno's still not ruled out.
I think you're right. I think either way though, I don't think we see Lock much more than 30% ownership. That's what I'm saying.
And guys, this is the year of the backup quarterback. Like, what the hell? Do you know I'm advancing in the playoffs with Browning and Easton Stick? Like, I don't even know these fucking quarterbacks. And I've got teams going like to round 2 on the back of an Aidan O'Connell and Easton Stick performance. Like, it's crazy. It's the year of the backup quarterback. What's going on out there, Bobbywow? These guys can't stay healthy.
No.
Running through some of the other plays here. So you said you're not in love with DK Metcalf. Maybe Lockett fits him better. Maybe JSN fits hhim a little bit better.
But like we saw DK the other night, right? It was maybe the worst matchup ever, and he totally broke the slate. He put up a billion yards, a couple touchdowns. So none of these guys are fully out of play on a showdown. I just feel like with Drew Lock under center, Tyler Lockett and Smith present as some of the better options in terms of volume. So everyone's in play on a slate like this. DK Metcalf, as much as anyone else, can put up big numbers in a hurry when things don't set up as well for him. But I'm just going to be overweight on those other two guys.
Yeah. Now the real question, I think one of the big ones from this game is Kenny Walker and what can we expect? He has a reasonable price point of 7,800, but it's not a good matchup. The one thing Eagles are really great on defensively has been against the run. So what is your outlook on Kenny Walker? Is fully healthy now?
It's all about what we see in terms of passes. Like if they're throwing the football to Kenny Walker and he's going to play, 70% of the snaps, he's getting 5-6 targets. Kenny Walker would be a phenomenal play. I don't know that we've seen that since he's been back from injury yet, which is the concern. But at 7,800, if we can see Kenny Walker start to work back into that role that we saw him in earlier this season, I think that's a great price.
Yeah, it seems like he's splitting way more with Charbonnet now, especially after Charbonnet came in and looked really competent at the position. So I think there is a lot of risk. I do not think we'll see Kenny Walker dominating the touches, to be honest. Even at 7,800 in a bad matchup, to me, it's the only exposure I really need of Kenny Walker is really going to be like that tournament, like make sure I get a little coverage of everything. But in my first lineup that I'm building, he will not be in that lineup, if that makes sense. Like my initial core would not include Kenny Walker.
I agree. I think he's more of a tournament option, but yeah. I do think we see him get a little more snaps tonight, and he was targeted 5 times last week. So that's kind of where I'm sitting. If we think he's going to get similar targets, if not more, he's a lot more intriguing, especially in tournaments.
I like it. All right, let's scroll down to the turd zone and see who are the cheapies that allow us to put a lineup together. Where my turds at? Got to make a lineup. All right, so coming down to this zone here in the breakdown, Bobbywow, we talked about how the Eagles don't have a lot of players that kind of fall into this. Well, Quez is out there. But after Quez, there's not a whole lot of guys, especially on the Eagles team, that you really want to mess with over here, as you could see from the breakdown sheet, where no one really gets many stars outside of Quez. In this zone in general, Noah Fant got a couple targets last week. Who's the best? Where am I going to save salary on this slate?
Well, I think, I guess it depends who you're playing up top. Like, to me, Tyler Lockett, Dallas Goedert, JSN, those guys are value guys to me a little bit. I think if you're using a couple of those guys in your lineup, you don't have to go way down here, but chances are you are trying to jam in some of those studs. And so, to me, I think Kes Watkins might be the most intriguing of everybody down here. If you're looking for a big salary saver, not many guys in this 1K range, 1 to 2K range that are guaranteed to put up points that have a decent ceiling. I think Kes fits the mold of could get you a 0 as well as everyone else down here. But, if he catches the long touchdown pass, he might have the best chance at a decent ceiling.
It's a miracle if he catches a pass. He's averaging 1 target per game, 1 target per game on the season or less. And that's been pretty consistent for Quez. Every once in a while, that's a big play, but it is a bit miraculous when he gets it done. Yeah, 47% snap count last week. And Olamide mixing in for 30%. So Quez definitely passing him in that pecking order, at least for last week.
I think Noah Fant is, if we're going to go a little bit higher, Noah Fant is probably the guy that is most likely to score you some points, though he's not sexy by any means and not guaranteed to put up, more than a handful of points, but he's probably most in play. And then obviously we talked about it, Zach Charbonnet and Kenneth Gainwell are fine plays. I think they could put up a handful of points. The problem is they're 4K. They're not cheap. Yeah. So that's kind of what we run into down in this range.
Yeah, I think it's Fant for me as my favorite of the sub kicker players. 2,600 for Fant. He really is actually coming on in terms of snap count and target share, mostly target share. But, 61% of the snaps last week, 12% of targets. That compares favorably to Colby Parkinson, at least. So it looks like Noah Fant kind of is that guy. He hadn't been targeted much, but the last couple of weeks he got targets. And it's noteworthy that he was targeted from, Drew Lock. So maybe, for this limited amount of knowledge that we have, let's bring him up here. But hey, he got 4 targets from Lock last week, 4 targets the week before. I think this is the best of the rest.
Yeah, I think he's most likely to score points. If you're looking for someone to score points under 3K, probably Noah Fant. Yeah,
that's your guy. So let's put a lineup together.
I'm surprised you had no love for Boston Scott. You always have a little Boston Scott love in you.
No. Boston Scott requires an injury or to be playing against the Giants. For some reason, he does get a touchdown against the Giants every game. But Boston Scott really requires an injury. Like, this guy's not in the game. 3 carries, 9 yards. It's not going to do it. Like, these returns are not going to do it for me, Bobbywow. Not for 18 hundo.
No thanks.
No, I'm not.
One more thing is before we build, just take your point a step further. Drew Lock did favor, Noah Fant a little bit last week. We talk about quarterbacks coming in, backup quarterbacks and experienced quarterbacks like their tight ends. I think you could say the same thing about Parkinson. He's min price. I think he caught a touchdown last week. So really any one of these Seahawks tight ends, even Disley, is worth a dart if you're running out a bunch of lineups.
Everybody's going to be chasing Parkinson from last week. 10.8 fantasy points. I don't know. I mean, sure. If I'm MMEing,
he's a turd. Yeah.
What's a turd? A turd is a guy who is probably going to get you 0. But every once in a while, they catch a pass or two, and one of them is a touchdown. You see it every single game. Agnew last night. And he was like a less bad turd, but like Jamal Agnew, one big play. That's all it takes. Quez Watkins, Olamide, they could do it on one play. So
I think you nailed it though. For me, if you're looking for 3 or 4 points under 3K, go Noah Fant. Yeah. If you're looking for potentially 0, but as many as 10, I'm with Kez. That's where I'm going.
The classic Killer Cam question: who is your favorite captain play on DraftKings for GPP?
Classic.
That is a classic Killer Cam question. Everybody wants to know.
I'm probably going right back to Tyler Lockett.
Tyler Lockett. Remember last time we did one of these with Seattle, we went to Lockett and Metcalf went bananas.
You know what? You got to be willing to be wrong if you want to
be wrong to be right. Tyler Lockett. So what's fun about Tyler Lockett is not going to be a super popular captain play. He's cheap to start with. Can afford a lot of stuff. Does not need to be the highest scoring captain in order to be the nuts captain. Those things are nice. And listen, the most obvious is Hurts.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's no flag plant for me, captain, on this slate. Just to say it out loud. I think Lockett's one of the more intriguing tournament ones.
You try to win the tournament. That's right.
Yeah, exactly.
Hurts is the top guy. AJ Brown and Devontae Smith are the next two. Like these are very much in line. I like DeAndre Swift as a bit of a sneaky one. Yeah. For sure. I like Swift quite a bit. And Lockett or Metcalf or JSN as the alternatives. That's it though. I think the best way to build these is to sort of build around that. Do we have to account for Eagles defense?
As captains?
Yes.
No, I'm not.
No Eagles D.
I won't, but I'm biased. I don't like playing defense anyway. You think they could be the captain play on DraftKings tonight?
I don't think it's likely, but I think the scenario that it does happen is if Drew Lock just stinks.
Which is certainly possible.
Listen, it's more possible that when like Zach Wilson is playing, he's just going to be horrific. You know what I'm saying? Like these backups, or we sometimes you see a back and they're horrific.
Drew Lock hasn't catch a break from you.
No, but he's also at home. I think it's less likely to happen to it. Even Milfson, if he was at home, I don't think that happens. It's the road game that adds to that. The quit situation, the horrors. I posted this weekend that, for all the horrible Jet seasons, sorry, I love to take it. There's been, 47 years of them. And one is now, and I have memories of the Vinny Testaverde Achilles. Like I remember each one. Chad tearing the rotator cuff. Such high hopes. This one stings up there with the rest of them. Like maybe the worst. I allowed a hope nugget in for my Jets and just hurt so bad.
Well, hey, I'm right there with you with the Bears. Just brutal.
The Bears are building something. They got things to look forward to. Jets have nothing to look forward to.
I don't know, man. It feels like that, but it always feels like that in Chicago.
Yeah, they have something. At least they're building. But I would say right at this, like if it's not Lockett, AJ Brown, you want these guys who put up a ton of points. AJ Brown's got 30+ point in him for this game.
100%.
You cannot just or I will give the advice I give all the DFS Army subscribers in the chat all the time, and they're here, and there's some other people who are not subscribers here as well. And I'll tell you right up, if you're making like 20 lineups for this, entering $3, like just a small number, and you want to try to win that giant contest, like in a mass multi-entry field, pick one and stick with it. And just accept it if you're wrong. Because you ain't winning shit by trying to spread around 20 lineups to 5 different captains. It's not going to win. Stick with one. If you can't stomach 1, 10 and 10. So that's how you're going to try to win the 20 max contest. Don't spread it around. Don't try to use every single guy. All right. So if we're making a Lockett lineup here,
it just came through. Ian Rappaport, Jalen Hurts, illness, will play tonight.
Okay. There we go.
So confirmed.
He's in. Don't worry. He drank some water. He had a little bit of IV fluids. He took some Dayquil. He's good to go. What do you do when you need to blow your nose and you're out there on the field?
Oh, man. That guy's just blowing right through the helmet, I think. No Kleenex. Maybe grab a thing of grass. Get rid of it.
Seriously. Now your hand is all slippery. You're like, you know what I mean? People don't think about that. Here, this guy knows. This guy knows about dealing with that. It's not because the nose blowing.
Oh, jeez. Oh, man, we have fun.
He knows how to do it. How is Snot 20 here at exactly the time when I was saying that? Like, what were the chances of that happening? You think the air blow and then the towel hanging on the center, little hand wipe.
Oh, man.
I mean, this is real shit, bro. You ever been out
These
there?
guys are NFL superstars. They have a pill to hand you that dry you right up, don't they?
No. There's no special pill. There's no secret pill to dry you up. You ever get a cold? You take the fucking decongestant. It doesn't do anything. Still blowing your nose. All right. Anyway, people want to see a lineup.
Sorry. Let's go. Yeah.
So we want to get a little different with this lineup here. I mean, it's a Lockett. Is Drew Lock in that lineup? Lock and Lockett? Lock them together?
Lock and Lockett. Then we load up on Philly guys. Let's see.
I don't know about all this. I already don't like it, but I already hate it.
We didn't talk much about the kickers.
Yeah. I think these kickers are both really good kickers. They always score a lot. I tend to always favor the favorite kicker. What do you think?
I think so. I think, either one for me. I don't have a huge lean.
Elliott just puts up numbers.
The volume for him just isn't great, but
because they score all the time. The problem with Elliott is, the Eagles put it in the end zone, but is there anybody sneaky who can get on the field and just random? I mean, George, there's always going to be people like that. And if we knew who they were, we would share them. They're the turds.
The guys getting snaps in that category are guys like Jake Bobo, Kez Watkins, even Zacchaeus.
I think that I like that you mentioned Bobo. I think Bobo is that guy. So George, I'm going to go back to George here. If there had to be like that random guy that's going to come in and catch a pass, you can be like, what the fuck? No one talked about him. It's Jake Bobo. That dude's won a showdown for me already this year.
That might be the last pass he's caught, but yes, he did.
But he does get snaps. Olamide, it took me 3 years to learn how to say his first name.
I love Zacchaeus. I think that's phenomenal.
Zacchaeus. I used to call him Olamide. Olamide.
I mean, no one can blame you. That's what it looks like.
You know, I read 8 books of Harry Potter and had Hermione's name in my mind as Hermione for 8 full books.
Oh, jeez.
I
got to read them all again.
She was Hermione. And then the movies come out and I'm like, what the fuck? It's Hermione? They changed her name from Hermione? I thought Hermione was a weird name. 8 books. 8 books, Bobbywow, before I found out.
Hermione. Jeez.
I fucked around.
Yeah, that's something you probably don't want to say out loud.
I'm just keeping it real. Like, what? Are there Hermione's in America? Why would I know how to pronounce that in my brain? The problem is you're younger than me, so you watched the movies before you ever read the book. Or maybe you didn't read the book. I don't know, Bobbywow.
No, I watched the movies. I did.
You watched them first. Yeah. Had there never been a movie, you would have been reading Hermione in your head too.
I'm gonna throw a quick take out there. I think I prefer movies over books. 9 times out of 10. Maybe 99 times out of 100.
This is a terrible take, Bobbywow. I can't even believe that I'm hearing this.
No one's willing to say it. I'm willing to say it.
This
Give me the movie over the book 99 times out of 100.
This is a brutal take.
All right, people want lineups.
8,600. Tyler Lockett's in the lineup. Get me some Goddard. Love Dallas. You always want.
You need Jalen Hurts.
You got to get Jalen Hurts in every lineup, just about, or mostly in most lineups. And I mean, this is a weird one because there's no room for Brown or Smith. I don't like it. You get Hurts, Goddard, Swift. This is a weird one. I don't like it.
So what if you get Goddard out? You put Brown or Devonta in there.
Let's get AJ Brown in here with Hurts. Leaves us 3,300. Noah Fant in the last spot. You're gonna be in this point. I don't think there's any way around it. I don't think there's any way around it. You're gonna have to play a sub 3K guy.
Okay, so now let's. I mean, that's interesting. Now let's play with Hurts at captain. Let's see what we have.
All right, so if Hurts at captain, I think the first move is you got to put one of Brown or Smith with him.
He's in flex.
So we got Hurts captain, Brown or Smith. Let's go the expensive.
Okay.
You're already down to 5K. Honestly, the start makes it very difficult. It makes it very difficult to make a lineup. Once again, I mean, I think you got to go with one of these turds. You have to. Or kicker, Jackson Smith and Jigba.
JSN's intriguing.
Goddard. JSN. Kicker. 5650. Nope.
People are saying now throw Fant in there.
Yeah, Fant in here, and then we can get up to Swift. Or Lockett. Yeah, okay. All right. And get Lockett in there. 2,100 left. I can actually make an adjustment here. 77, so I can get Goddard, Jackson Smith and Jigba, or Goddard. If I leave JSN in there, I guess Myers can go up to Goddard. Yo, I like that. There we go. That's how about that? And everybody's saying Colby Parkinson. I think that's another one. I do think you want to do. So let's see what happens when we go down to Parkinson. Right? So if you put the $200 guy in your lineup, from here, I can get a whole other super stud into this one. And that's a Metcalf, a Lockett, Smith, Swift, whatever.
Who'd you have in there before?
Actually, you
Lockett.
know what?
Now you can go from JSN to Swift.
That's one. Ooh, I would like to get to Swift right there. That's not too bad. Can go from Goddard up to Smith as well. So if I wanted, I could do Smith and Brown. Has Smith and Brown delivered together?
It's rare. It doesn't happen often. And
right?
Again, yeah.
11 last week for Smith. Brown with the 17. Neither one of them had a smash game. Oh, that was that horrible game against Dallas.
Like 22 and 25. You know, that we saw that a couple weeks ago. That's probably enough on a slate like this, but it's not like
it might be 30
that we're hoping.
I'm not going to actively avoid it.
Definitely not. I agree.
So if I just wanted a high score without winning the tournament, though, I would want to try to get them both together. So I would want to go. I would just say, you know what? Let me get all three of them. Make sure I catch the passing offense in full. But I think that's a little bit squish it all together and trying to make it work. But here's a version like you'd take out Goddard, you'd go Hurts, Brown, Smith, in Jigba, Parkinson, Lockett.
That'll be a popular lineup. I think people are gonna. Parkinson's gonna be. I think he'll push for sure double-digit ownership as that min price guy that people are trying to jam in, which is fine.
Yeah. And Hurts, of course, can disappoint if the game doesn't become competitive and they don't really need, or if Swift is doing a lot. So I'd want to have Swift in any non-Hurts lineups probably, or some version of that. If I wasn't playing Hurts, I'm playing Devontae. Not Devontae. Swift.
Even more so for me, probably Kenneth Gainwell. He's the guy that if Hurts goes out or if he isn't playing full strength or whatever, I think Gainwell could be that sneaky I mean, he's going to be 5% owned. That guy's going to have no ownership at 4K. So mix him a little as well if you're not playing Hurts.
Can you own Gainwell? And Swift in the same lineup?
Yes.
Yeah.
As long as you're not playing Hurts, I wouldn't play all three of those guys.
Do you have
if you're not playing Hurts, I don't hate it.
Do you have a single FanDuel spot or DraftKings spot that you're kind of like, this is my sneaky guy that I really want to load up on?
Not a sneaky guy necessarily. I think we covered already. Kez. I want to be overweight on Kez. Probably be overweight on Kenny G's, probably 15% or so. But otherwise, Tyler Lockett's another overweight spot for me. Nothing crazy. Nothing where, nothing way different than the field outside of those three.
Nothing's popping too much.
FanDuel's FanDuel's interesting.
Did people in the chat were talking up Agnew, I think, before the game last night. He was definitely somebody that a lot of people had exposure to. Not in your one-off handcrafted, but like if you're making a few lineups, you had him for sure. All right, let's talk a little bit of FanDuel here, and we'll just pull up the sheet real quick for the MVP pool. Jalen Hurts, of course. These are just obvious. Drew Lock, Brown, Swift. I would include Kenny Walker here, but probably not my top choice.
Agreed.
It's unlikely A.J. Brown gets there ahead of Jalen Hurts. In order for that to happen, this would have to be so wholly and fully focused on A.J. Brown. I tend to not think it's particularly likely to happen. I think you go Hurts, Lock, Swift, maybe Walker.
Yeah, I agree. I think Walker's interesting. Drew Lock will be under 10%.
Yeah,
MVP in my opinion. So if you're trying, we talked about it a couple weeks ago and it happened. Great leverage spots. A guy like Drew Lock on FanDuel, much rather play him and get leverage on FanDuel instead of DraftKings. I think he could get there. I really do. I think Kenneth Walker, again, not a great play, but he looks like he'll be sub 5% MVP ownership. If you're trying to take down a tournament on FanDuel, double or triple Lock exposure, double or triple Kenneth Walker exposure in MVP. That's the easiest path there, in my opinion.
I think you're always right about this stuff, Bobby.
Swift too, but I mean, look at Swift, 5%.
That MVP ownership for Swift is the one. That's the one that's popping for me. That's the one that's popping for me. Like, wait, 5%. There is a scenario where the Eagles dominate this game. They don't need to do that much with Hurts. They hand it to Swift. He scores twice, and you win all the money on FanDuel. That's a win all the money situation. I think you got to play Swift. 5%, I think it's crazy. It's absolutely nuts. And 10% Drew Lock is also a little wacky.
To me, there's equal likelihood, if not more likely, that Swift would be MVP versus A.J. Brown. I think Swift is more likely than Brown to get it. But if Brown is 3x the ownership.
Agree. And while I don't think it's super high likely that Drew Lock is MVP, at least if he is, you know what you're doing. You're stacking him with two of those wide receivers. And, how's he getting there? Well, that's the Metcalf went wild / Jackson Smith and Jigba did a little damage, or some second guy. So if you're doing that, you got to put two pass catchers with him. So you don't have to build that many lineups with Drew Lock captain to cover what is effectively a lot of these bases.
Well, Lock could run one in too. That's the other thing. It's not like he's a Nick Mullins guy that's going to sit in the pocket. Lock could run one in.
Let's see.
Really intriguing on FanDuel in these spots.
Last week, 3 rushing attempts, couple yards. He could scramble.
And look, we're talking about how to take down a tournament potentially. But these are the places that I would be. This is where my eyes go first on FanDuel when trying to take something down.
Yeah, if you're going to do FanDuel, you might as well be different about it, because the vast majority of people are starting off the lineup like this. And now you're just vying for these 4 spots.
Right. And no one's unique at this point. You might think, oh, I'm getting Colby Parkinson in there. He's not unique when Jalen Hurts is your MVP.
Every outcome will be covered. Yeah. And then you put in Noah Fant or one of
you
these
have
guys
Hurts,
down here.
Eskridge will score a touchdown. You'd be like, oh my God, I'm going to win it. Nope. It's 100 people that had Eskridge in their Jalen Hurts MVP.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's going to be well owned. I just made a beautiful lineup on FanDuel in 10 seconds.
There you go.
You want a kicker in there. You switch Brown for Smith, Devontae Smith. Now I can get rid of Noah Fant and I can put a kicker in there, and it's even sexier. So, oh, the kickers are 5K Myers and 9K. So yeah, there you go. Something like that. Easy stuff. My advice for FanDuel once again on this type of slate is if you're going to play it in mass multi-entry, just know that if you're bothering to make Jalen Hurts captain lineups in MME, it's probably going to win, but you're probably going to lose money if you mass enter and do that. You might not. You could win and still lose for winning. So the sharper approach. If I was doing Jalen Hurts, you got to either leave some significant. You got to do something unique with it. Either leave 1,000 on the table and find 1,500. Find some pathway that's unique with it. Maybe don't stack him. Something weird.
Him and Kenny G's. Something crazy.
I don't think Hurts is coming out of the game for the Ellens. Guys, it's not a hamstring.
The only way he's coming out is if the Eagles have put up enough points to go up 45 in the third quarter, at which point he's already in the nuts.
Yeah, there you go.
Otherwise,
or he's coming out because they got it win, and he's like, Coach, I feel like shit. But players don't do that. Players do not go to the coach and say, Coach, pull me out of the game. That just doesn't happen.
No, not Jalen Hurts, especially.
No, it's not going to happen.
Real quick, people are saying, Gino's warming up on the field. I think just to try and address this from a general level before we sign off, you and I are in general agreement that whether it's Gino or Locke, it doesn't change a massive amount. Like, it doesn't change the story significantly, right?
Virtually no difference. The only actual change would be if Gino actually goes out there and plays. He's a little banged up, but he decides to play anyway. I think it's worse for the Seattle offense. You remember when Derek Carr went out there with the busted shoulder and he couldn't throw the ball, but he didn't want Jameis Winston taking his job. And so he's out there just throwing 2-yard passes to the running back the whole game because he couldn't do anything else. Like, I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I'm much more leaning to it's worse for the offense than it's better if Gino comes out there, but don't let it affect you at all. At all. Don't let it affect you. How you approach it. We kind of said a little bit of like, maybe Drew Lock favors Lockett over Metcalf. We said that that's really bullshit.
I don't know.
It's just a one-game sample.
Favor is the wrong word,
yeah.
But
yeah, like I don't really believe that it makes that big of a difference.
I don't think it's a huge difference. No.
Yeah, like the difference is like, oh, Gino's willing to air it out a little bit more than Locke is, but
right, it's a one-game sample size. You're absolutely right. But ultimately, at the end of the day, like if you play Gino or if you play Locke, and we get news 20 minutes before Locke, like you shouldn't have to scramble and rearrange everything. Like those guys are swappable to me wherever you're playing them.
Yeah, there it is. I mean, it just shouldn't matter. This is another. I don't. Listen, Mariota won somebody $1 million once. Remember that a couple of years ago?
Yes.
So anybody ever want to throw Mariota in a lineup? I'm not going to laugh at you, but like, I don't. Mariota comes in not because he's sick, but like he hurts his ankle. That's a real possibility. We didn't talk about injury replacements. Do I need to account for some Charbonnet maybe if like Walker re-injures himself and maybe Charbonnet comes in, has a big game?
You should account for Charbonnet either way. The guy's he'll be on the field for 40% of the snaps.
Yeah, I mean, the question though, when you're talking like that is, do I need to account for it in lineups that don't have Walker in them, or can they be both? Because it ruins it if you have Walker in the lineup. Like I might just rule them out together.
Probably.
Even though it's possible for them to hit together, I think I'm more likely to win a tournament if one guy gets hurt and I have the other guy and he's in and all of a sudden he smashes.
Especially with Lockett being essentially the same price. It's hard for me to see both those guys in the optimal.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So I think if I'm playing any kind of, and I would do the same thing for Kenny Gainwell. there's a scenario where Gainwell and Swift make it together in this like run heavy attack. You know, Hurts has been sick, and they're just like, hey, let's just run it and win easy here. Seattle doesn't give you a hard time.
Yeah, I could see them in the optimal Swift and Kenny G's more often than the other two.
You would want the jinx if you actually had played that approach, right? Don't you want the jinx at that point? Like, you know what I'm saying? Last week I said on the thing, I was like, you know, I didn't know Tyreek was getting hurt, but I was like, you know, Tyreek, like, if you look at his pattern of hits and misses, it's like 4 hits and then a miss, and he's had like 5 hits in a row. He's due. I didn't want him to get hurt, but you know what? Shit happens. All right, Bobbywow, I think that's it for this one. We got a nice game tonight. There is a crazy week of DFS coming up again. Another 2-banger on Saturday. Then we got Sunday. Then Christmas, Bobbywow. Show the tree.
We got Christmas Eve games. We got Christmas games. This is the most wonderful time of the year, truly, for football, for Christmas.
What is it? 3 games on Monday?
I think so. Yeah.
I'm gonna fucking collapse from content.
Oh,
how do you even cover a 3-gamer on Sunday on Monday when there's and games on Saturday? I don't even know how to cover it.
It's like if it's heaven, man. It's the greatest. It's gonna be a lot of football, a lot of coverage, a lot of sheets, a lot of pods.
So much sheets.
A lot of people winning money.
So much DFS going on. I am here, and we're gonna do some sort of sign-up special this week as well. It's not out yet. It's not out yet.
Speaking of, oh man.
Oh, that is a fire hoodie right there.
I could fall asleep right now. This thing is so comfortable. I feel like I'm being hugged. It's like it's like Geek hugging me right now.
That's what it's supposed to feel. You know how many models of hoodie I ordered to the house and tried on before choosing that one for the softness?
And that's what I try to explain to people. Your thoroughness when it comes to these designs and the types of shirts is unmatched.
It's much less on the design and much more on the feel.
The feel is very special.
Yeah, I can't stand like a thick T-shirt or a scratchy hoodie. It's got to have that good, solid feel. So, yeah, enjoy that. But lots of DFS coverage this week. Breakdowns coming out. I don't even know how we're going to cover it all, but we got it. We got it going. So stick around, like, subscribe, notify, all that good stuff. We want to see you win. Good luck tonight, everybody. Let's take down another showdown. I got screenshots from this weekend. The 3-gamer winners, takedowns. I won a tournament. Holla at your boy every once in a while. The old man came through with a takedown as well. I still got it. But it's like, that's the Bobbywow. Fucking Geek takes one down too every once in a while. So yeah, we had a takedown this weekend. We had a takedown this weekend. Really good stuff. And hopefully by me and lots of other takedowns. Let's keep it going. Good luck tonight, everybody. We'll see you later in the week.